My wife wants the aesthetically pleasing life of a housewife after years of studying to become a doctor, but I'm totally against it. I have been with my wife since our second year of high school. From what I remember, she has always wanted to become a doctor, a pediatric doctor to be exact. While I kept changing my mind and was continuously unsure about what I wanted, my wife was extremely dedicated on wanting to be a pediatric doctor. I've seen her study her butt off in college and cry from frustration as she studied. Seeing her work so hard gave me the motivation to finish school and become a lawyer. We've been each other's biggest supporters throughout this journey, from working odd jobs to support ourselves, having cheap dates at the park and crying from stress and frustration. It was like finally seeing the end of the tunnel with my partner next to me the entire time. We got married right after I graduated from law school and started living in a bigger place with the money we had saved together. She finished her internship this year and is about to legally become a licensed doctor. However, her happy tune about becoming a doctor suddenly changed. I'm not really sure when her obsession with becoming a housewife started, but seeing her go from being a career-oriented woman with hopes and dreams to wanting to become a housewife gave me severe whiplash. I just couldn't understand what could make her change her mind so suddenly. I tried asking about it and she said something along the lines of, "I just want to cook and clean for you. Live a simple life." I assumed that maybe she was feeling lonely since I've been working a lot, so I told her that we'd go on more dates and spend more time together, but again she insisted that she wanted to be a housewife. Don't get me wrong, I don't think there's anything wrong with being a housewife. But to give up your long years of studying and hard work to stay home and cook is absurd. We're already splitting the chores at home and we've just been on very equal footing since forever. I just can't seem to read her. Maybe being a doctor just isn't for her, or perhaps she got bored. I just don't get it. I want her to do what makes her happy because I truly love her and she's my entire world, but is stopping everything and throwing away the chance of having one of the most respectable jobs on earth just to stay home and do chores really worth it? Maybe I'm asking the wrong questions. Maybe she's trying to tell me something and I'm being dense. I wish I could read her mind. I just don't get it. At the end of the day, I just want to know why and maybe convince her otherwise. As much as I think that it's a bad idea, it's still her life, but I don't think I'll ever be able to forgive myself if I let her throw her career away. Update. For one, she's working to finish her residency. I'm so incredibly proud of her for pushing through, even with all the odds against her. She's incredibly hardworking and I'll always be there for her. Through the past few months, I had to revisit a lot of areas within our relationship. For one, the status of our relationship was worse than I imagined. There were major life events in her life that I would have never known about if I hadn't broken the growing wall between us. My wife has always been a hard worker, and because simple encouragement always seemed to be enough to boost her morale, I assumed that this was still the case. I was terribly wrong. My wife needed a friend, a shoulder to lean on, a confidant and a lover. But during her very difficult year, I was none of those things. As her wife, I failed to give her the proper love and support she desperately needed and deserved. Not only was she burnt out, but because I unintentionally put work before her, I wounded her deeply. Our intimacy was practically non-existent. Our conversations never went beyond surface-level subjects, and sometimes, the only time we'd see one another was when one of us was already long asleep. Whenever I would ask her if she was okay, she always told me she was fine, which I doubted. But since I didn't want to push her, I stopped asking. That's where I made my mistake. Asking wasn't enough. I was foolish. We barely saw each other, did anything together, shared words of endearment, or basked in each other's presence. Intimacy just seemed so foreign between us. Like a fool, I thought, hey, I asked if she was okay and she said she was fine. My job here is done. I never once tried to give her the reassurance that I was someone she could depend on, that I was ready to sit and listen, that she could complain to me about the same thing over and over again and that I'd still listen with just as much attention. During a time of great stress, I was everything but helpful. The distance between us was growing pretty rapidly, and it's only after her insistence on becoming a housewife that this veil was lifted. Thanks to my initial post, I received a lot of helpful criticism both online and in real life. It took a lot of personal reflection. Initially, I thought applying what I was told would be a piece of cake, but seeing myself struggle to approach her made me realize how much we had truly grown apart. Little things like her hair, the bags under her eyes, or even her choice of clothes all changed. My wife has always been someone who enjoyed dressing up. Pastel colors are her favorite, and weird earrings she finds from God knows where, shoes, makeup, and sweets. Little things that made her suddenly stop appearing. Again, I tried to argue that because she works in a hospital, her style of choice was most likely limited, but even when she was home, it was different. Guilt was eating me alive. My hands would tingle in pain just thinking about the burden she must be carrying all on her own. I decided to stop acting oblivious. Even if I had to do something I deemed as awkward or unnatural, I was going to push through because she deserved better. I began to initiate simple intimacy. If it meant simple hand-holding, or working in the same room as her, I did it. I no longer asked if she was okay, but instead let her know that I would always be there for her whenever she needed me. She's my priority. Although it took some time, I was able to coax her into confiding in me again. We did revisit the housewife thing after a few months. She admitted that this feeling came from a deep sense of loneliness, stress, feeling burnt out, and the witness of a child's death. It was her first time witnessing a gradual, inevitable death, and had grown quite attached to both the child and the mother who happened to be our age. This made the entire tragedy even more painful. However, my wife is still a doctor and things move quickly. She tried forgetting about it and moving on, but the realization of the weight she carries as a health professional kind of became burdening. She began questioning her years of study, her skills, and her abilities, things that she took great pride in turned into insecurities. Eventually, she came across some aesthetically pleasing life as a housewife content on YouTube. The idea of never having to go through such stress and heartbreak seemed so freeing to her. She no longer has to see children in poor conditions, focusing on herself, her home, her own personal life, and our relationship. To be completely honest, I didn't know how to comfort her. For one, I'm not a health professional. Whenever I curiously looked at her notes, my head would start spinning seeing words that seemed so foreign. Our careers differ so much from one another, that I didn't know what would be appropriate to say. What can you possibly say to someone going through this type of heartbreak? With my limited knowledge, I told her that she shouldn't carry that burden and blame herself. People are quick to run to doctors whenever they get the slightest symptoms because they know that a doctor knows best. You naturally bring comfort, a sense of relief, and safety. To me, she is no different than a superhero. The joy she brought to that child stuck with her right until her final moments, and that's something she should be proud of. The child was able to live a little longer and experience so much more joy because of her kindness and expertise. We revisited this conversation a lot, and every time I listened, eventually, she gained a lot more confidence. She relied on her supervisor as well, who's been in the field way before either of us was even born. Seeing her get better day by day made me so incredibly happy. We're at such a great place in our relationship right now. I love hearing her voice, seeing her, being near her, and being there for her. I missed her so much. I don't know how we went so long without speaking properly. She's my best friend, my family. I want to say that I wish I had known what to do sooner, but this entire incident was necessary. I believe it is. It brought us so much closer. We're family, and speaking about heavy subjects shouldn't be odd between us. I learned a lot about my wife, myself, and our relationship. I'm very happy with how things are going. Although we're still busy, we always find some time for ourselves. We also recently adopted 2 cats. I know a lot of people suggested that perhaps my wife was getting baby fever, but I assure you, our kittens definitely taught us that kids probably aren't meant for us. Not anytime soon anyway. I'm excited to learn more and deepen our emotional connection, and I can only see a brighter future ahead.